The statue of Apollo and Daphne stands in the Galleria Borghese in Rome, carved by Gian Lorenzo Bernini between 1622 and 1625. A god reaches out with his left hand toward a woman fleeing him. His fingers have just closed on her side, and where his hand meets her skin is already gone. Bark is climbing over her hip. Her raised arms are sprouting leaves at the fingertips. Her toes, mid-stride, have rooted into the ground. You are not looking at a before and an after. You are looking at both states at once, frozen at the exact second one became the other. Now think for a moment how difficult it is to carve marble. It does not bend or flow the way clay does. Once removed, stone cannot be added back. So to carve a figure that is simultaneously running, weight on one foot, hair thrown backward, cloak snapping behind him, and simultaneously transforming, texture shifting from soft human skin to ridged bark within a few centimeters of surface. Bernini needed one motionless block to hold two physical states at once, movement and metamorphosis in the material that can do neither. Then there's the hair. Daphne's hair does not lie against her head. It lifts off her skull in 3 dimensions, individual strands connected to nothing but air and the strand behind them, each one thinned down to a sliver of solid stone with no support underneath. One wrong angle of the chisel and 4 centuries of admiration end in a pile of gravel on the workshop floor. For a long time, that fact bothered art historians because Bernini did not carve all of it alone. Records held by the Metropolitan Museum of Art credit an assistant named Giuliano Finelli, barely out of his 20s himself, with carving the leaves, tendrils, and bark of Daphne's transformation, work the museum's own curators describe as astonishing virtuosity. A 1997 restoration examined by the Galleria Borghese found that Bernini had wrapped the most delicate sections of the marble in plaster cushions mid-carving, padding to absorb vibration so the thinnest stone threads elsewhere on the block wouldn't shatter while he worked. Some historians argue entire passages of hair and foliage are substantially Finelli's. Others insist Bernini, who could carve a face into pure grief or pure hunger, would never have handed off the one detail the whole illusion depends on. No surviving document settles it. What's left is a marble surface so continuous that after 400 years no one can point to a seam and say, here, one hand stopped and another began. Maybe that's the actual trick. Not that one genius did the impossible, but that 2 men carved so close to the same vision the seam disappeared entirely. The man who commissioned it was Cardinal Scipione Borghese, nephew of a pope and one of the most competitive art collectors in Rome. A year earlier, he had given away Bernini's previous masterpiece, a sculpture of Pluto abducting Proserpina, as a political gift to a rival cardinal, hoping to win favor with the new pope's family. Apollo and Daphne was, in part, Borghese's answer to his own generosity, proof he still had first call on the one sculptor everyone in Rome wanted. Partway through, Bernini set the piece down for nearly a year to carve his David for a different patron, then came back and finished Daphne in the autumn of 1625. 2 career-defining masterpieces made back-to-back by a man not yet 30. There was one problem with the subject matter. Taken directly from Ovid's Metamorphoses, it is a chase that is one hand's grip away from an assault. Cupid, mocked by Apollo for playing with a bow meant for real archers, takes revenge, a golden arrow into Apollo, forcing him into obsessive desire, a leaden arrow into the nymph Daphne, forcing her into permanent revulsion. Apollo pursues her anyway. She only escapes by begging her father, the river god Peneus, to destroy the body that is causing her so much suffering. He does. That is what you are watching happen in marble, a father transforming his daughter into a tree so that a god cannot have her. To place that story inside a cardinal's private villa, someone needed to supply a moral. Cardinal Maffeo Barberini, the future Pope Urban VIII, wrote a Latin couplet and had it carved into the base. Quisquis amans sequitur fugitiva gaudia forme, fronde manus implit, Bacchus su carpet amores. Whoever chases the pleasure of a fleeting beauty ends up with nothing but a handful of leaves and bitter berries. On paper, it turns the sculpture into a warning against lust. In marble, it sits directly beneath a god's hand closing on a fleeing woman's bare skin. For the first century and a half of its existence, the sculpture wasn't even displayed the way you'd expect. It stood against the wall of the room, angled so a visitor walking in saw it from behind first. Daphne's back, her raised arms, what looks from that angle almost like an embrace. Only by walking around the base did the visitor discover what was actually happening. The open mouth, the horror on her face, bark climbing her thigh, Apollo's hand exactly where it shouldn't be. The sculpture was built to lie to you before it told you the truth. It wasn't moved to the center of the room, facing forward, until 1785. So which sculpture are you looking at? Read one way. This is the myth's original meaning, intact. A story about the vanity of desire, ending in Apollo's grief and his decision to make the laurel sacred forever. The leaves that would go on to crown poets, Olympic victors, and emperors. Loss transformed into glory. Read the other way. This is a marble record of the precise instant a woman's body was taken from her twice. Once by the god chasing her, once by the father who could only save her by ending her as a human being at all. The hand is already touching her when the bark starts. The transformation didn't prevent the contact. It only prevented what came after. Bernini gives you both readings in the same block of stone, built to be discovered from two different sides of the same room, and never tells you which one is correct. Look at Daphne's face one more time. Her mouth is open, not in ecstasy, not in wonder, but mid-scream, caught the instant before bark closes over it and she goes silent forever. That is the last human expression she will ever make. Everything after this second is wood. So when Cardinal Barberini's inscription warns that chasing fleeting beauty leaves you with nothing but leaves and bitter berries, who is he actually warning? The god who caused this? Or you, 400 years later, standing in front of it, unable to look away either?